Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a pretty universal mystery. Why your hard-earned money just keeps vanishing. I mean, have you ever had that feeling at the end of the month where you stare at your bank balance and just think, what exactly just happened here? Trust me, it's a surprisingly universal experience. So let's dive into this mystery together and figure out exactly what's draining your accounts. Because you look at your lifestyle and, you definitely didn't buy a private jet. You didn't suddenly purchase a massive mansion. You were honestly just living your normal everyday life, but somehow all that money just vanished. It is incredibly frustrating, isn't it? And, we always tend to blame things like inflation or just bad luck. But today, let's figure out where that money actually disappeared to, because it is rarely one massive, catastrophic mistake that ruins our finances. The real culprits? They're exactly 7 invisible vampires. These are incredibly subtle, sneaky little traps that are quietly sucking the life out of your bank account while you sleep. They hide right in plain sight, completely disguised as everyday habits and normal psychological quirks. But not today. Today, we're going to drag every single one of them out into the light. So let's jump right into section 1, mind tricks and traps. Basically, how your brain mislabels your money. We're going to start our monster hunt with the vampires of the mind. These are psychological blind spots that actually trick us into mismanaging our own wealth. Economists call this first trap mental accounting, though I kind of prefer calling it the found money trap. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain is divided up into all these different little boxes. You've got a highly protected box for your hard-earned salary, a totally sacred box for your savings, and then a completely separate little box for things like bonuses or tax refunds. Now, you would probably never ever take $2,000 out of your sacred savings box just to go buy a new iPhone, right? But if your boss suddenly hands you a $2,000 bonus, you are literally halfway to the Apple store before the check even clears. Why? Because your brain treats that bonus box as if the cash inside is somehow way less valuable than your savings. But here's the thing. Your brain is totally lying to you. In economics, there's a specific word for this. It's called being fungible. It just means every single dollar is absolutely equal in value, regardless of where it came from. But mentally, we treat this found money like it's just meant to be wasted. So to kill this first vampire, you've got to establish a hard rule. You must remember money is fungible and start viewing all income, whether it's a bonus, a tax return, or a birthday gift from your aunt, strictly as earned income. You've got to force your brain to put it all in that exact same sacred box. And that brings us to the trap of relativity. Okay, imagine the stock market is a guy named Drunk Dave. Dave shows up every day. Sometimes he's wildly happy, sometimes he's totally depressed, and he's constantly offering you these crazy fluctuating prices for your stuff. Well, retail stores do the exact same thing with their sales. They'll show you a pair of shoes for $300, but then they cross that number out in bright red ink and put $250 next to it. Boom. Your brain gets a massive rush of dopamine because you think you're saving $50, but you aren't saving anything. Actually, scratch that, you are literally just losing $250. That old crossed out price, that's just a psychological anchor used to make you feel like you're winning. You have to stop looking at what you are supposedly saving and only look at what is actually leaving your wallet. The final mind vampire in this section is the fulfillment trap. We all kind of have this built-in assumption that 50% more money will finally magically make us happy. And to be fair, at the start, that is somewhat true. Earning more money genuinely improves your life when it moves you from pure survival mode into comfort. But there is a peak to that curve. Once you hit that peak, acquiring more stuff actually leads to less happiness. Why? Well, because now you have more things to manage, more clutter in your home, and significantly more stress. You have to stop chasing a moving target. You have to find your fixed point of enough. That sweet spot where you have exactly what you need to be comfortable, and you stop letting the sheer desire for more drain your resources. All right, moving on to section 2, the hidden math monsters. These are the invisible numbers quietly draining your wealth. Now, these are the monsters that quietly rob your future while looking completely harmless on paper. Take our first math monster, the ghost fee. Imagine a scenario with 2 brothers, Brother A and Brother B. They both receive a super generous $100,000 gift from their grandmother, and they both decide to invest it for 30 years. Brother A finds an investment with 0 fees. Brother B, however, invests in a fund with what sounds like a tiny, totally insignificant 1% fee. I mean, just 1%, it feels totally invisible, right? Well, get this. After 30 years, that invisible 1% ghost fee results in Brother B having $418,000 less in his account than his brother. No way, right? But it's true. Let that sink in for a second. That 1% fee wiped out nearly 24% of his total potential wealth. The lesson here is simple but absolutely vital. Never, ever ignore the fees. A ghost fee will haunt your retirement for decades if you aren't paying attention. Our next math monster is the real hourly wage lie. You might confidently tell people your job pays you $30 an hour. But have you ever stopped to calculate what your job actually takes from you? Step 1 is your base wage. But step 2, subtract the time you spend getting ready and your daily commute. Step 3, subtract the money you spend on work clothes and, oh yeah, those expensive unwind drinks you buy after a highly stressful day. When you subtract those costs and add in the extra hours of your life the job requires just to function, that $30 an hour often plummets to a true wage of just $10 an hour. And that $10 isn't just money, it is your life energy. So before your next big purchase, do the math. That $400 jacket, at your true wage, it didn't just cost you $400. It just cost you 40 hours of your actual life, gone forever. Which leads us to Section 3, Energy and Time Thieves. These guys are draining your focus and your potential. Our final attack vector involves vampires that operate on a totally different level. See, they don't just steal your cash directly. They rob you of your focus and your potential to build wealth in the first place. First up here is the incomplete vampire. This one is incredibly common. Every unfinished task, every unreturned phone call, and every half-done project sitting in your garage is like a tiny vampire actively draining your mental energy. It creates all these open loops in your brain. And when your focus is entirely drained by 100 unfinished things, you become exhausted. And what happens when you're exhausted? You make poor, impulsive financial choices. You order that expensive takeout because you're just too tired to cook. You buy a random gadget for a quick dopamine hit. To slay this vampire, you have to make a list of everything incomplete in your life and intentionally finish them one by one to win your momentum back. Then there's the opportunity cost thief. This is all about where you allocate your time. The source material shares this great story about a guy spending 2 whole hours returning empty beer bottles just to get $3 back. He felt incredibly productive, but the math shows he was effectively earning $1.50 an hour when he could have easily earned $7 an hour delivering food during that exact same time. Successful people pay special attention to this thief. They never wait in a line for an hour just to get a $2 hamburger. They understand that wasting your time on $10 tasks literally forces you to actively ignore $50 opportunities. Okay, Section 4, the ultimate weapon, automation. How to actually protect your wealth from these vampires. Now that we've exposed these 7 monsters, the mental traps, the hidden math, and the time thieves, it is time to arm ourselves with the ultimate defense mechanism. To stop these vampires for good, you can't just rely on trying harder. You need to establish what's known as a Ulysses contract. This concept is named after the ancient hero Ulysses. He knew the siren's song would totally tempt him to crash his ship. So, rather than trusting his own willpower in the heat of the moment, he had his crew physically tie him to the ship's mast. A Ulysses contract is a decision you make right now, when you are thinking clearly, to bind yourself to a positive future action. So how do we apply a Ulysses contract to our finances? Simple, by automating everything. You set up your investments, your savings, and your bill payments to happen completely automatically behind the scenes. By automating your financial life, you completely remove the temptation of those impulsive decisions when you're tired or stressed. You don't have to rely on sheer willpower when the found money trap or drunk Dave comes knocking. You effectively make the right choice the only choice. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take a hard look at your own finances and your daily habits. Think about the mental accounting, those sneaky ghost fees, and the incomplete tasks draining your focus. Ask yourself this one absolutely vital question. Which vampire is bleeding your bank account right now? Identify it, set up your automations, and take your life energy back.